Now about setting up connections and resetting of connections. TCP is a connection oriented protocol. So, a connection, that means a virtual path between the source and the destination, has to be established. This is only a virtual path, because once again remember that TCP is working on IP, that means an IP is a connectionless service. So, the underlying actual service is actually connectionless, but TCP gives the sense or gives the feeling to the upper layer, meaning this application layer, that as if it is a connection oriented thing. That means all the good things about connection orientation, like segments arriving in order and they are reliable, etc., that is present. But TCP has to work on a connectionless IP network. So, this path that is set up, path that is established from the source to destination, this is only a virtual path, unlike traditional strict connection oriented service where the connection may be physical. Now, for connection establishment, 4 actions are required before sending data. So, and actually this is 4 actions, but 2 of them may be combined. So, it may be a 3 actions also. We will see what they are. First, host A sends a segment. Suppose host A is the client which is sort of trying to establish a connection to a server, maybe say host B. So, host A sends a segment to announce its wish for connection and includes its initialization information. Okay. And then host B sends a segment to acknowledge the request of A. So, host B sends back an acknowledgement. Then host B sends a segment that includes the initialization information. So, what you might do is that the second and third step can be combined. That means the host B can acknowledge the request of A, as well as in the same acknowledgement it might send a initialization information, meaning the sequence number, etc., they have to be exchanged. Then host A sends a segment to acknowledge the request from B. Second and third can be combined. This is called 3-way handshaking. So, the first SYN, that means for synchronization, that is the sender sends a synchronization, that is the request to set up a connection to the host, and it also gives its initial sequence number. The receiver then sends a SYN, its own SYN, that means it sends its own sequence number, which is something like 4800 here, and an acknowledgement of 1200. So, this segment which is coming, which is the segment 1, already consumes the first sequence number 1200. So, it while acknowledging, it sends the value 1201, meaning that 1201 is the next segment or the next segment number that the receiver is expecting. Of course, what might happen is that this packet may get lost, because once again the TCP is sitting on a best effort kind of IP service. So, it may get lost. So, what will happen to the sender is that sender will not get any acknowledgement. So, after some time it will send the SYN pack again, I mean if it is persistent, and then finally it will get the SYN and the acknowledgement. Similarly, if this is lost, once again this is sent after some time, so that finally this is achieved, and then the sender sends the sequence number now 1201 and acknowledgement 4801. So, you see this sequence number is always the next number that is expected from the other side. When it sent 1200, sequence number 1200, it replied back saying that it is next expecting 1201, and its starting number is 4800. So, he replies in his acknowledgement that the next acknowledgement he expecting is 4801. So, this way. So, this is the 3-way handshake, where the SYN and the ACK has been combined and the data transmission can start. And on the other side, we have to think about the connection termination. Either party of course can close the connection. If connection is terminated in one direction, data can continue to be sent in the other direction. Remember that this is a full duplex communication. That means A is communicating to B and B is communicating to A at the same time. Okay. Even if only predominantly one side is sending data to the other side, but anyway the acknowledgement is coming from the other side anyway. Now the connection can be terminated from both sides, but then somebody has to initialize the termination. So if connection terminated in one direction, data can continue to be sent in the other direction. So 4 actions are required to close the connection in both directions. Suppose both directions the connection now has to be closed. First, host A sends a segment announcing connection termination. So which means that it sends a segment containing FIN. You remember all the SYN, FIN, etc. those are the flags in the segment in the header. Host B sends a segment acknowledging the request from A. After this, the connection is closed in one direction. When host B has finished sending data, it sends a segment indicating connection closure. Okay. These two, for example, that second step and the third step, they cannot be combined together, because although we are sort of allowing the termination of connection from one side, but from the other side he may have acknowledgements or other things to send to this side. Okay, so he will not terminate the connection. So these two cannot be combined together. The third step can be taken only when host B has finished sending data from its side and it sends a segment indicating a connection closure. Host A acknowledges the request from B. So this is called a 4-way handshaking. And this is a diagram showing a 4-way handshaking. For example, assume that the sender has sent a FIN in a segment 2500, and then when it receives the FIN, if everything is all right, he will send back an ACK, and he will say of course that the next one that he is expecting from the other side is 2501, sequence number 2501, and sequence 7000, which is the acknowledgement for this FIN. After some time, when B is finished sending all its acknowledgements or other things that it might want to send to sender, then it sends a FIN from this side. So this is for closing the connection from the other side. The acknowledgement that is expected once again is 2501, because this is still 2501, because nothing else has arrived from the other side, so it is still 2501, and the next it takes the next segment number 7001 from this side, and he acknowledges this second FIN, and this when the acknowledgement reaches here, so everything is closed gracefully. Of course, things may not run so well because some or more one or more of these packets may get lost on the way, because we know that the underlying network is unreliable. If the first FIN is missed, of course he does not get any acknowledgement, so after some time he will send a FIN again. If similarly, if this ACK is not received, but then he will send this FIN once again anyway. So this FIN this FIN again may be lost. So since he does not get the acknowledgement, he will send a FIN after some time. The trouble is over here, because you see at this point of time, after sending this acknowledgement, the sender will assume that everything is fine, so he will close, but this last acknowledgement may get lost. So you cannot really, and now once this side closes, because he sees that all the fins have been sent and received and the acknowledgement has been received and sent, so he will say that that is the end of the story. But for him that is not the end of the story, because this act is now lost. But if this fellow has already completed, he will not send any ACK any longer. So what he will have to do is that after some time he will have to close the connection anyway.